In this video, I'm going to showcase how to render out your animation or your scene. So if I just play the animation here, I got like a very short animation of the Pokeball just kind of like going across the motion path here. But the main thing is it's not the animation itself we're going to look at. We're going to look at how to actually render this out. Before we do the rendering, actually, what you might want to do is you may want to set up a camera. So if you go into the rendering subtab here, it should be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th across. This little icon here. If you click on this, this creates a camera. You can't really see it behind the Pokeball, so I'll just kind of move it across. This little camera here. So that's the viewport. So we need to make sure we angle the camera the way that we want to. And just like any other object as well, we can animate this as well. But I'm not going to bother with any sort of animation right now. I could, for instance, have the camera sort of animate across here all the way over there. So I might do that actually. So what I'll do is I'll move it into place to where I want. Now, at the moment we can't see what the camera sees. We can actually change perspectives. Just like how you press the spacebar to change to the top, down and side views, we can also switch from our perspective view into our camera's view. If you go to the panels here, it's just underneath the sub-tab, you'll see how view, shading, lighting, etc. The last one where it's called panels. Click on this. Right at the top you have perspectives, and you see we have perspective here. We also have our camera. Its default name is camera 1, and we can change the name to like animated camera, etc. But basically all your cameras will be here. So we go to camera 1, and we can now see what our cameras can see. Bear in mind, if you don't want to move your camera, don't move your mouse or move the object around, because if I move it over here, for instance, and go back to perspective, you'll see that our camera has moved. So if you do move your camera view, so if you're trying to like rotate or pan across, it does also move the camera at the same time. So if you don't want it to move, be careful not to actually use any of the move tools in Maya. What we can do, if I switch back to camera here, in the attribute editor here, we have various different attributes that we can change. So we can change the angle of the view, for instance. So we can kind of mess around with these. So you can see how much focal length or depth that we have in this particular scene. So you can see here I can kind of make, the more and more that I mess with it, the more I can see in a scene. Change the focus depth as well, as much as you want. You can pretty much mess around with all of these settings here, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to kind of go back to its default. Oops. So yeah. Okay. So this is where my camera will be. So what I'll do is I'll animate the camera going from there all the way to the end. I can go to panels, camera 1, go back to the beginning, press play. You'll see that I can kind of like a small little pan across here. Okay, so for the sake of this video, let's say that my animation is complete. We're not going to go into lighting too much, just so that we can actually see our object when I render it out. I'll be doing a video on lighting separately, but for now we're just putting a lighting in there, so when we render it out we can actually see it. So what we do next is, let's have a look, go back to modeling. Okay. So what you want to do is, you want to click on this icon here. Yours might be underneath the UVs, but if you look around for it, it should be here. These 4 icons here, all are attributes of rendering. So this here allows us to see the rendering option, which brings this up here, so we can see our scene rendered out if you want. We can render it out, APR render, and we can go to render settings here. Click on that. This particular icon will show up. Now, we need to change some of the attributes here. So where's this file output? We want to change it from Maya if to a bitmap. The next thing we need to change is where it says frame/animation ext. Now, at the moment it's set to just a single frame. We don't want a single frame, we want all the frames. So you need to make sure that you go to the third one, which is name, hashtag, and ext. Now you'll see that the frame range has become active. Now we need to change these values here. So where does that animation start and where does that animation end? Our animation starts at 186 and ends at 250. So I need to make sure I put in those values here. Where's the renderable cameras? This is where the animation is rendered out from. Now we want to change that to the camera. And here we had to, with the image size, we have some presets here for you already. Well, mine does anyway, not me particularly. But you can see you can have your own custom ones. You can have like a 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K, HD, it's like sub HD, 722, 720, 1080p. You can have all different types of rendering options for you there. You can also put your own as well, so maybe you want a very specific resolution for your animation. But we'll keep it at 540 for now. So once you're happy with that, again, make sure the image format is BMP, frame animation ext is changed to name, #ext, put in the correct frames there, make sure that your renderable camera is the one that you want to use, so maybe it's just perspective, maybe it's a camera, maybe it's a completely different camera, and make sure you put your correct image resolution. What you need to do next is you change from modeling to rendering. So what you need to do next is under the rendering menu, you click on that, go to batch render, click on the little icon here, then press batch render. Don't worry about that too much, just press OK. And at the bottom here, you'll see results rendering with Maya software. Now what will happen now is you'll see it pretty much go crazy. You'll see that it will start to say Pokeball animation frame 1, 50-80% complete. It will basically render out each individual frame into your project file. So if I quickly, you'll see it now right in the bottom of the screen. It'll tell you how far the process is from completing a single frame. You can see since it's not a full 1080p animation that it's rendering quite fast. And you see now it's complete. Okay, so let me just bring up my project file. Okay. So when you render out a animation, those frames are saved out to your image folder in your project. Now if you haven't set a project, Maya will automatically put it to the default one, which should be under your Documents Maya projects default, and you'll find the image folder here. Now I have my project set to 3D lesson models, which is what I have right now on my computer. You might have a different project file. If I go into images, you'll see that you'll have each individual frame animated out here. Now if I go into After Effects, what we can do now is we can put those individual frames into a video editing software. You could even put these into Windows Movie Maker, for instance, and make sure that the frames time correctly. So it might be like a millisecond per frame to actually render out that full sort of 5-6 second animation. But for this instance, what we're going to use is After Effects, and you may want to use After Effects in class as well. So it might take a bit of time to kind of load up. The version of After Effects I have is CS6, so it's a bit of an older version. It's not the current version that you have in college right now. So what we do is we go to Composition, New Composition. Call it whatever you want. I'll just call it Test, and you can change the preset from a full 1080p video to something like Sub HD. I might do that just because I have a faster resolution. Just press OK. Now under here, if you right click in the empty area here, you can import multiple files. So I'll just quickly go in and get my particular okay, so all you have to do is you don't have to select all of the BMP files, it's just the first one, so it'll be this one here. Press open, and you'll see there, just make sure I cancel the second one. You'll see that I have a BMP sequence, so if I click and drag it here to the bottom right hand corner, you'll see that the animation will show up on screen. And if you need to, you can change the size of your... Yeah. This is your timeline as well. You'll see that it's not in frames, it's through seconds. So the top the top bar you can kind of increase and decrease to see more of the timeline. So I'm decreasing it so you can get up to like say a couple of seconds. And this basically shows what we can render out right now. So whatever's highlighted is basically what we're going to be rendering out as a final product. So if I press spacebar, we can see a preview. So you see we have our animation playing there. I think there's a slight error. It doesn't seem to have animated the camera moving, which is very strange. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure the camera's animated. Let's double check that again. To be fair, it's just a black background, so that camera could be moving. It's just because we have no reference point. So I'm pretty confident the camera is moving. It's just we can't tell because it's just a black background. You'll find that when you're making a scene in Maya, you're going to need to put some sort of backdrop. You will need to create your own sort of sky dome, because as a default, if you're rendering something out in Maya, all you have is like black background. So do make sure that you put in some backdrops or like a sky dome to actually give a sense of depth. Right now, you can't even tell that there's actually a moving camera in this scene right now. Okay, so once we're happy with our animation, you can put in some sound effects if you want to. What you need to go next, what you got to do next is go to Composition, Add to Render Queue, and what you can do is where it says Output Module Lossless, we can click on this, and we can change the file format, and we can change the format options, so we can mess around with these to kind of make it a higher or lower detailed version if we want. For instance, I can go to here, change the bitmap and the detail of the object, but I'm not going to do that for right now. But once you're happy with that, where it says output 2, click on that, and for now I'll just save it to here, call it whatever you want, press save, and in the far right hand corner here you have a button that's called render. Click on that and it will render out your animation, and you should get like a ping sound effect if you have your volume on to tell you that it's complete, like so, if you heard that on the video or not. So if I go to, then you'll see here that I have my AVI file. It's at 170 megabytes. It's quite a high. It's quite a high file size. Although you may want to go in and change that. Again, if you want a high resolution, you're gonna have to pay the price of like having like a high video format. But for like a 5-second video, I probably would condense this quite a bit, because again, we don't need that sort of full HD quality. You can see here now I have a fully rendered out animation.